Good evening. This is my second attempt at a vlog. This is my first time I'm going to try to use YouTube's service to record this directly. I tried this earlier in the evening, and unfortunately, what I was working on was lost, so that was not a good experience, but hopefully, this will be a little more smooth. Today, I'm going to discuss an article titled Repository Librarian and the Next Crusade The Search for a Common Standard for Digital Repository Metadata. This is authored by Beth Goldsmith and Francis Knudson. And basically, this article is looks at a real world example of an attempt to take metadata records from different sources and integrate them into a metadata repository. And for the purposes of this article, they looked at the Los Alamos National Laboratory Research Library and basically an effort to integrate these records into this repository. And they thought about initially possibly just keeping the metadata, different metadata types, and putting it into the repository and homogenizing it downstream. But ultimately, they decided that they wanted to select a common or uniform standard, if you will, to convert those records to one using one standard. And they had three essential criteria for selecting a uniform standard. The first was granularity, which basically ensures lossless data mapping and is critical for keeping context and linkages among data elements. Then transparency, which is for seamless data interchange and interoperability. It's basically ensuring that the standard is accepted throughout the community, as well as that it will be used on other projects besides just this one. And the third one was extensibility. And this is basically to ensure that the standard will permit growth and allow for scalability and adaptability. Now, in this specific case of the Los Alamos National Laboratory Research Library, these records they were dealing with, metadata records, were mostly of a bibliographic nature. So that narrowed down somewhat the potential standards that they were going to choose among. And basically, they looked at five different standards: Marks XML, Dublin Core, Prism, Onyx, and Mods. And I was not familiar with all of these standards. Obviously, I knew about Dublin Core and Marks XML, which is actually a XML extension of the Mark 21 standards, and it basically allows for the Mark data to be freed from the Mark structure. And they looked at these standards in terms of the different criteria, and they found in some cases one standard might be good for monographs, but it wasn't really good for serials, and vice versa. And they found in one case, for instance, that the Dublin Core was really too simplistic for what they were trying to do. So they finally settled upon Marks XML, and really one of the big reasons was how well it handled identifiers. Now there was certainly some concerns about the complexity of Marks XML due to all the subfield combinations, but they did some data analysis and they found that really there were 37 tag subfield combinations used in 90% of the Mark records. So they decided that Marks XML was going to be the standard to use. So they went ahead and converted these records. Actually, up to this point, they've converted 87 million metadata records to Marks XML, which is really a astounding figure when you think about it. And they did some testing, and the test that they use is what they call round tripability. And that's an interesting test because basically they take one of these converted records and then they use it to recreate the original record. And they found that the round trip ability using Marks XML was fantastic, and it was basically this recreated record would be identical. So they really found that Marks XML was an excellent standard to use for this project, and they found that it was robust and at the same time had enough capability for their purposes, and that it's a flexible and transparent downstream. So basically, that's really, again, like I said, an example here where we had mark records from, or not mark records, metadata records from different sources that were integrated into a metadata repository successfully using a uniform standard. Well, that's it for now. This is the conclusion of my second vlog, and hopefully YouTube will allow me to successfully upload that, but we'll see. So we'll talk to you later. Goodbye.